Always knew my son had a flair for dramatics. Ever since he was a boy, he could spin a tale so thick with charm and sweetness you'd forget he was talking his way out of trouble. He inherited that silver tongue from his father, God rest his soul, and over the years, I'd learned to read between the lines of his grand promises. But this time, I wanted to believe him. Needed to, if I'm being honest. A cruise, Ma. Just the two of us, he said on the phone, his voice boyish and excited. For your 65th birthday. You've never even left the country. It's time. I clutched the phone tighter, my heart swelling with something dangerously close to hope. Are you serious? I asked, trying to sound nonchalant, like I wasn't already picturing ocean sunsets and white linen dinners. Dead serious, he replied. I already put the deposit down. It's a week-long Caribbean cruise. You and me, some mother-son bonding, unlimited shrimp cocktails, you'll love it. I almost cried. Instead, I said something smart like, I hope they've got bingo nights and soft pillows, or I'm demanding a refund. He laughed, and I let myself believe. In the weeks leading up to the trip, I was a woman possessed. I bought a new set of luggage, bright teal, hard shell, with little spinner wheels that made me feel like James Bond gliding through the airport. I renewed my passport, which had expired a decade earlier, unused and pristine. I even splurged on a new pair of sandals, the good kind, the kind that says, retired, fabulous, and mildly orthopedic. Every night I'd pull up pictures of the cruise ship online, marveling at its floating city grandeur. I imagined myself sipping something fruity under a striped umbrella while my son finally relaxed, disconnected from work and dating drama. Maybe we'd laugh like we used to. Maybe he'd remember how to just be my boy again. He hadn't always been distant. When he was little, we were a team. It was just us two after my husband died when our son was barely 10. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, rarely complained, and always put him first. I told myself that someday, when he was grown and successful, he'd return the favor. Not in money, but in time. This cruise felt like that time. The morning of my birthday dawned bright and beautiful, the Florida sun spilling through my hotel window like it was on my side. I dressed carefully, choosing a floral blouse that had just the right amount of festive flair. My teal suitcase stood ready at the door, and my heart beat with the rhythm of something new. I arrived at the port early. Too early. The kind of early that says I don't want to miss a moment. I stood near the check-in area, scanning the crowd for my son. I hadn't seen him in person in nearly a year, he'd been too busy with work, and I tried not to let it sting. Today, I told myself, would make up for all that. My phone buzzed. My stomach fluttered. I reached into my purse, expecting a message that said, I see you. Coming over now. Instead, I read. Plans change. I'm taking my new girlfriend instead. Happy birthday. The words punched through my chest like a cold wind. I stared at them, expecting them to rearrange, correct themselves. Surely this was some kind of sick joke, or maybe he meant to send it to someone else. But no, my name was right there in the message preview. I blinked once. Then twice. And then I smiled. A big, wide smile. I pulled out my passport, held it next to my face, and snapped a selfie. The teal suitcase was visible in the background, standing like a quiet witness to the whole absurd scene. I didn't stop walking until I hit the edge of the parking lot. The sun was already climbing, painting the sky in orange and gold like it had no idea my world had just cracked. My fingers were tight around the handle of that teal suitcase, its tiny wheels rattling over uneven concrete. It sounded like applause. Or mockery. The cruise ship loomed behind me, monstrous and glistening like a floating promise I wasn't invited to. I didn't look back. I didn't cry. I wasn't going to give my son the satisfaction, not now, not ever. Instead, I did what I've always done when the ground shifts under my feet, I kept moving. There's something strangely liberating about being suddenly unanchored. No cruise, no sun, no itinerary. Just me, a full passport, and a birthday I wasn't going to waste. So I opened my phone and searched the map. No more exotic islands, but maybe a quiet beach town nearby where the sun still shone, where strangers wouldn't look at me like I'd been stood up by my own blood. I booked a one-way bus ticket to a place called Fernwood Bay. A fishing village turned artist retreat, if the internet was to be believed. It sounded like the kind of place where no one would ask questions, and if they did, I could make up answers. The bus ride was bumpy and long, filled with the scents of motor oil, vanilla body spray, and the faint tang of salt air. I sat near the window and watched the flat Florida landscape roll by, dotted with palm trees, gas stations, and memories I didn't want. Somewhere along the highway, I realized I was humming. Just a low tune from childhood, something my mother used to sing when she cleaned the house. It was the kind of sound that filled the empty spaces. The kind that reminded you, you're still here. Fernwood Bay wasn't much from the outside. A crooked wooden sign welcomed me at the town's edge, flanked by seagulls and the smell of fried food. But it had charm. Real charm. Pastel-painted buildings with hanging flower baskets, a small harbor where fishing boats rocked gently, and locals who walked slow enough to make eye contact. I dragged my suitcase, now affectionately nicknamed Teely, up the slope to a little inn called the Driftwood Nest. A woman with wild gray curls and bright blue glasses greeted me at the front desk. "Well now," she said, eyeing my suitcase. "You don't look like the cruise ship crowd." "Plans change," I said, smiling softly. She raised an eyebrow. "Best kind of adventure starts when the old plan blows up, honey." I liked her immediately. I checked into room 3, a corner room with a view of the bay and a tiny balcony just big enough for one. I kicked off my sandals, stood on that balcony, and breathed in the briny air. I didn't feel free yet. But I felt unburdened. That night, I walked into the town square and stumbled on something unexpected, a gathering of locals at an outdoor open mic event. A few artists displayed their work. A man played guitar under string lights. People danced barefoot in the grass. It was messy and imperfect and alive. I stayed. A woman around my age sat next to me with a cup of lemonade and a sun hat that looked like it had survived a hurricane. "Name's Gloria," she said. "You passing through, or hiding out?" "A little of both," I replied. She laughed like someone who'd heard stories wilder than mine. "Good," she said. "The world needs more women who decide they've had enough of waiting." And with that, I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this detour wasn't a detour at all. Mornings in Fernwood Bay had a rhythm all their own. The seagulls started first, loud and unbothered by human schedules. Then came the clink of coffee mugs and the scent of warm bread drifting from the bakery across the street. I stood on the balcony with a steaming mug in hand, watching the town slowly wake up. I hadn't slept well, but I didn't feel tired. The silence in my hotel room had a strange texture. Not empty, just unfamiliar. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't listening for anyone. No husband shifting in bed. No son thudding around the house, asking for money or advice or forgiveness. Just me, my thoughts, and the sound of waves against the dock. Around 9 a.m., I wandered down to the Rusty Gull Café, a little diner tucked into a converted boat shed. The air inside smelled of strong coffee, sea salt, and cinnamon. I slid into a booth with cracked red vinyl seats and picked up a menu. Before I could even read the specials, a woman appeared with a coffee pot and a smirk. "New face," she said, filling my cup without asking. "You the one who checked into Driftwood last night?" "That obvious?" "Fernwood small. We notice when someone interesting shows up." "I'm Mel." She nodded toward the coffee. "First one's on me. Welcome to the slow lane." "Thank you. I'm..." "Don't tell me." Let me guess. She squinted at me theatrically. Newly retired, recently single, and trying to find yourself. I barked out a laugh. Close enough. Mel grinned. Relax. Half the people in this town are on some kind of escape mission. As I sipped my coffee and picked at a blueberry scone, I let myself settle into the hum of the cafe. Locals came and went. A man with a leather sketchbook and sea-stained fingers ordered eggs and sat near the window. A pair of older women discussed someone named Edna's questionable new boyfriend. A teenage girl in a beanie behind the counter drew cartoons on the back of receipts. It felt right. Like I'd been dropped into a place that didn't need me to explain myself. Mel came by again, this time with a plate of scrambled eggs and grilled tomatoes. I didn't order this, I said. You looked like you needed it. I stared at the plate, then up at her. You know, people are supposed to mind their own business. Mel winked. Where's the fun in that? I spent the rest of the morning walking the harbor, watching boats bob lazily in their slips. I paused near a small artist's gallery where driftwood sculptures stood like frozen dancers on the lawn. One of them, a tall, twisting piece that looked like a wave mid-crash, took my breath for reasons I couldn't name. Inside the gallery, I found a man hunched over a slab of wood, chiseling with quiet focus. His hands were rough, sun-darkened, and deliberate. He looked up, nodded once, then went back to carving. Your work? I asked. Some of it, he said. The prettier stuff's my daughter's. I smiled. This one, I said, pointing out the window, the wave, what's it called? He set his chisel down. Didn't name it yet. It looks like motion caught in the middle of breaking. He tilted his head. That's not bad. You a writer? Not in years. He grunted, but not unkindly. You should be. By sunset, I was back on the balcony, barefoot, a second glass of white wine in hand. My phone buzzed once. Son, 4:17 p.m. You're being dramatic. Call me. I stared at the screen, then slowly turned the phone over and placed it on the table. I wasn't ready. Maybe I wouldn't ever be. And for once, I didn't feel guilty about that. Below me, the town glowed under fairy lights. Laughter drifted up from the square. Someone strummed a guitar. A dog barked once, then quieted. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt, beginning. Let me know when you're ready to keep going with Chapter 4, or if you want to introduce a specific subplot, like the son's girlfriend side of things, more Fernwood characters, or even a journal or flashback element.